So I'm going to be reading from an excerpt from a longer story that I just wrote a little bit ago. The story is called King of Hearts. You don't need to know much about it except that there's three criminals who have been drafted from prison into an unknown conflict in the Brazilian jungle. And the main character is telling another character's story. So way back in the dawn of time, way before I had ever thought about going on a cross-country crime spree, I used to walk to school instead of taking the bus or bothering my mom. This was back on the coast, and I mean right smack dab on the coast. The sidewalk took me right along this big cliff with just a shitty little broken down fence separating me from a very deadly fall. I wouldn't have been hamburger. I would have been the hamburger that was left after the other hamburgers beat up on it in the parking garage. I kind of liked it that way. After a long day at school or a short night at home, it was nice to get the kind of solitude that comes with a big life message attached. Better watch out, shrimp, because you're never too far from the edge. I don't know for sure if I thought that way when I was 8, but I think I did. I was always a bright kid. So one afternoon, I was just walking along and enjoying the salty breeze and the comfortable fear of falling to my death when something on the fence caught my eye. I don't mean a seagull or a crab or nothing like that. It was a sort of hazy wrinkle in the air above the fence. Like if it was a particularly hot day and the asphalt started making the air all fuzzy. Except it wasn't like that at all. Or it wasn't just making the scenery blurry, it was making up a whole new kind of scenery. As I came closer to the wrinkle, I started seeing patches of green and purple and red where there should have been nothing but the blue and white of the Atlantic. When I got right up to it, I jumped out of my fucking skin. I wasn't just playing tricks on my eyes, there was a whole jungle inside that wrinkle. Some sort of extra-dimensional something or other that astrophysicists are always going on about, like a black hole or a wormhole or some kind of hole. Not that I thought about all that when I was 8, of course. I was more concerned about all that freaky-looking shit that lived in that jungle in the wrinkle. I saw stripy tigers that were smaller than sparrows and traveled in armies like ants. They rushed across the undergrowth and all pounced on this gigantic fucking snail. A snail as big as my mom's house with a shell that glittered like quartz. The giant snail roared in pain, and I never knew I would ever cover my ears to blot out the sound of a snail getting mauled by tiny tigers. But Jesus Christ, that sound! I don't want to fill up your brain with too many metaphors because I can already see it starting to smoke. But imagine the sound of a cow mixed with the sound of an airplane taking off right over your head. Or like a big tidal wave crashing on the beach mixed with the sound of a foghorn. Something like that, whatever. It was loud, it was low, and it shook my little kid body to the core. All those little tigers. Fucking tiny tigers! Cleaned up that carcass quick, though. Ate all that slimy flesh and left nothing but the shell. No blood, just a stream of tigers and a big shiny rock. I saw round purple fruits that fell from way up high in the canopy. They were kind of like grapes and kind of like raspberries and kind of like apples, and they burst in a rainbow of juice and vibrant red seeds when they hit the ground. I saw spider monkeys that were actually monkeys with 8 long hairy legs that would try to catch the purple fruits as they fell. I saw neon color changing fireflies. Things that looked like nothing I'd ever seen before. Things that looked like everything I'd ever seen in a zoo. And more, and more, and so much more. And I knew all of it was just for me. I'd found the jungle. I was the king. The king of a place that only existed in a certain spot at a certain angle, but that's a lot more than what any other kid could boast about. When I finally snapped back to my senses and ran home, I told my mom all about it. She didn't think I was crazy at all. Just laughed and hugged me and helped me make a little crown out of yellow construction paper. She even wrote king on it in big black blocky letters. I wore that crown all night, prancing around the house like I owned the joint. My mom playing along. The next morning, I fucking sprinted back to where the wrinkle, my jungle, was. Imagine my surprise when I found somebody already there. Some little piggy-eyed prick of a kid with a ball cap and untied shoes, picking his nose and staring into the hazy spot like he owned the place. Imagine my surprise. Now, Jeremy, you must be thinking to yourself, maybe I misjudged the situation. Maybe this kid was just some newbie who had never been to this part of the country and was looking out at the ocean rather than some weird little tear in the fabric of reality. Maybe I'd gotten the location wrong. Maybe the wrinkle was further along the fence. Maybe I overreacted. Maybe. I am willing to entertain these possibilities. But they don't matter, because my 8-year-old self didn't have such doubts clouding his mind. He was only concerned with the safety of his kingdom, and he knew what he had to do. I knew what I had to do. I kept walking towards school, and the new kid didn't even glance at me. Just kept staring with a dopey fucking look on his fat face. Didn't even notice when I came up behind him. With all the strength of a jealous king, I shoved the little shit over the fence and into the jungle. I watched with great satisfaction as a swarm of tigers pounced on his body, started tearing him apart in tiny chunks, blood seeping out all over the ground until it was lapped up by the horde. He was a skeleton in the leaves before he could even scream. And then the tigers went right back to marching through the jungle, my jungle. I took my paper crown out of my backpack, put it on my head, and I did my own marching all the way back to school.